Jake Carter never thought that helping a friend would turn his life upside down. He was just a simple human engineer working on the alien planet Veltris, a place full of tall, armored warriors called Veltrans. They were strong, proud, and followed strict traditions. Jake, on the other hand, was just a regular guy who fixed machines, cracked jokes, and tried to avoid trouble. But trouble had a way of finding him. It all started when his Veltri friend, Zira, asked him for a favor. Zira was different from the others. She was strong, yes, but also awkward in social situations. While other Veltri warriors walked with confidence, she hesitated. While they spoke in deep, commanding voices, Zira's tone was always unsure, like she was waiting for someone to tell her she didn't belong. So when she approached Jake one evening, shifting uncomfortably on her massive clawed feet, he knew something was up. "Jake," she said seriously, "I need your help." Jake put down his datapad. "Sure. What's wrong?" She hesitated, her forefingers tapping against her armored forearm. Finally, she said, "Mating season is beginning." Jake choked on his drink. "I'm sorry. What now?" "Mating season," she repeated, as if it were obvious. Jake blinked. "And what does that have to do with me?" Zira let out a deep sigh, like she was frustrated with having to explain. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "Veltrians do not simply choose mates. We must prove ourselves in the trials." Jake leaned forward. "Trials?" "Yes, combat, strategy, endurance, all to show that we are strong enough to be a worthy partner." Zira's mandibles clicked in frustration. "But I am not like the others. I fight with honor, but others use tricks. I follow the rules, but they look for ways to bend them. I am at a disadvantage." Jake nodded slowly, starting to understand. Zira was too noble for her own good, while the others were willing to play dirty to win. "And where do I come in?" he asked. She looked at him seriously. "Humans are clever. You think differently. You know how to outsmart stronger enemies." She hesitated before adding, "With your help, I could win." Jake sat back, considering. Helping Zira wouldn't be too hard, right? Maybe he could give her some strategy tips, train with her a little, and then go back to his normal life. "All right," he said, smiling. "I'll help." Zira's eyes brightened. "Thank you, Jake." At that moment, Jake had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. 2 days later, Jake stood at the edge of a massive arena, staring at the chaos inside. The ground was cracked and scorched from previous battles. Towering Veltri warriors clashed with each other, their armor gleaming under the twin suns. Some fought with weapons, others with their bare hands, moving with brutal efficiency. It looked less like a tournament and more like an all-out war. "I thought you said this was just a competition," Jake muttered. Zira, standing beside him, didn't seem concerned. "It is." Jake sighed. "I should have asked more questions." Before he could change his mind, a booming voice echoed through the stadium. "The next trial begins." Zira stepped forward, her muscles tensing. Jake followed, whispering, "All right, remember what we talked about. You don't have to be the strongest, just the smartest." Zira gave a determined nod. Her opponent stepped into the arena, a hulking Veltri male, covered in scars, twice Zira's size. Jake gulped. "Okay, maybe we should have trained a little more." The signal was given, and the fight began. The male warrior charged like a living battering ram, claws ready to tear through anything in his path. But Zira didn't move. She waited. Jake grinned. "Good. Stick to the plan." Just as the warrior lunged, Zira dodged at the last second, just like Jake had taught her. The male stumbled forward, off balance, and Zira delivered a powerful kick to his back, sending him crashing face first into the dirt. The crowd gasped. Jake pumped his fist. "Yes, that's how we do it." The warrior snarled and got back up, clearly furious. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. Azura. Maybe we should. But it was too late. The real fight was just getting started. The crowd roared as the massive Veltree warrior, still covered in dust from his fall, let out a furious growl. His glowing yellow eyes locked onto Zira, burning with rage. Jake, standing at the edge of the arena, gulped. Okay, so maybe making him angry wasn't the best idea. Zira, however, remained calm. She rolled her shoulders, claws flexing as she got into a defensive stance. Jake had spent the last 2 days training her with human-style combat tactics, dodging, countering, and using the enemy's strength against them. But right now, all he could do was hope she remembered everything. The referee raised a flag, signaling the fight would continue. The moment the flag dropped, the massive warrior charged again. Twice as fast, twice as furious. A smarter way to fight. Don't block, Jake shouted. Use his momentum. Zira waited until the last second, then sidestepped, just like before. But this time, instead of letting him recover, she used her long tail to sweep his legs out from under him. The warrior slammed into the ground. Again. Jake grinned. She's learning. The crowd gasped. The other Veltree competitors, watching from the stands, whispered among themselves. The fallen warrior snarled and pushed himself back up. His armor was scratched, but he wasn't giving up. Jake watched as the warrior stopped rushing in blindly. His movements changed. He was studying Zira now, adapting. Jake frowned. This is bad. A smarter opponent was way more dangerous. Zira, keep moving, Jake called. Don't let him control the fight. But the warrior had other plans. Instead of charging, he suddenly grabbed a chunk of broken stone from the ground and hurled it straight at Zira's head. The attack caught her by surprise. She barely dodged in time. Jake's heart jumped. Oh great, now he's using dirty tricks. Before Zira could recover, the warrior was already on her. He swung his massive arm, a direct hit to her chest plate. Zira stumbled backward, her breath knocked out of her. Jake clenched his fists. Come on, Zira. Think. The warrior lunged again, ready to finish the fight. But Zira did something unexpected. Instead of dodging, she ducked low, then rammed her armored shoulder into his gut. The warrior gasped in shock. Jake's eyes widened. That's it. Don't just dodge. Counterattack. Zira didn't hesitate. While the warrior was off balance, she grabbed his arm and used his own weight against him, flipping him hard onto the ground. Boom! The entire arena shook from the impact. The crowd erupted into cheers. Jake whooped. That's my girl. Good job. The warrior groaned, struggling to move. The referee raised the flag. Winner, Zira of Clan Varun. Jake pumped his fist in victory. Zira stepped back, breathing heavily, but there was something different in her posture now. She stood taller, prouder. For the first time, she looked like a real champion. Trouble is just beginning. As Jake and Zira left the arena, a group of warriors blocked their path. Jake froze. Avo. The leader, a huge Veltree with black armor, narrowed his glowing eyes at Zira. You fight well, he admitted. Too well. Zira tensed. What do you want, Valzor? Jake's stomach sank. This guy was important. Valzor crossed his arms. You won your first trial. But now, every warrior here sees you as a real contender. You're no longer just some background fighter. Jake glanced at Zira. Is that a bad thing? Valzor's mandibles twitched in amusement. You don't understand, human. The stronger she appears, the more warriors will challenge her. Jake blinked. Wait, so we made her too good. Valzor nodded. She will now be tested by the elite suitors, the strongest Veltree warriors. If she continues winning, she won't just earn respect. He narrowed his eyes. She will become the most sought-after mate on Veltris. Jake's stomach dropped. Zira's eyes widened. But I only entered to prove myself, not toe. It doesn't matter. Valzor interrupted. You have no choice now. The trials must continue. Jake swallowed hard. Oh, great. Zira had won one fight. But now, instead of a handful of opponents, she had an entire planet's strongest warriors coming after her. And worse, if she kept winning, she wouldn't be the only one in trouble. Jake was now part of this too. Jake paced back and forth in Zira's small training room, rubbing his temples. This was bad. Really bad. Okay, let me get this straight, he muttered. Because you won your first fight, now you have to battle even stronger warriors. Zira nodded, adjusting the straps on her armor. Yes, and if you keep winning, every warrior on this planet will start chasing after you. Another nod. Yes. Jake stopped pacing. And if you lose? Zira hesitated. Then I lose my honor. And no one will take me seriously again. Jake groaned and sat down on a crate. So basically, we're stuck. She looked at him, her golden eyes serious. Jake, I understand if you don't want to be involved anymore. Jake stared at her. Are you kidding? I can't just leave you now. I got you into this mess. Zira tilted her head. No, I got myself into this. Jake sighed. Yeah, well, I'm still helping. Before Zira could reply, a loud gong echoed through the building. The next trial was about to begin. The first elite challenger, Jake and Zira, entered the massive arena, where the crowd had tripled in size since the last fight. Wow, Jake muttered. Looks like everyone wants to see if the honorable warrior can survive the next round. Zira ignored the crowd and focused on the towering figure standing in the arena's center. Her next opponent. Jake's eyes widened. Oh, that's not good. The warrior was massive, even by Veltri standards, easily 2 feet taller than Zira. His black and red armor looked heavier than a human motorcycle, and his deep voice rumbled like distant thunder. I am Kaltor, first blade of the Bloodfang clan. His piercing yellow eyes locked onto Zira. You have earned your place here, but it ends now. Zira had tightened her fists. We'll see. The referee raised his hand. The trial begins. A battle of strength versus speed. Kaltor charged like a beast, his massive fists swinging down toward Zira's head. But Zira was faster. She dodged to the side, just barely avoiding the impact. The ground cracked where his fists landed. Jake winced. That would have flattened a truck. Kaltor turned fast, faster than someone his size should be able to move. His next punch came straight for Zira's stomach. She blocked it with her forearm, but the sheer force sent her skidding backward. Jake clenched his fists. He's too strong. If she keeps blocking, she'll lose. Zira, don't match his power. Use his own weight against him. Zira nodded slightly and changed her stance. Instead of staying still, she kept moving. Kaltor swung again, but this time, she ducked, grabbed his arm, and twisted. The giant warrior lost balance for a second, and Zira took advantage, slamming her elbow into his ribs. Kaltor grunted but didn't fall. Instead, he snarled, grabbed Zira by the arm, and lifted her into the air. Jake's heart stopped. Oh no. Kaltor threw Zira across the arena. She crashed hard against the stone floor, dust flying up around her. The crowd gasped. Jake's stomach twisted. Come on, Zira. Get up. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, she pushed herself up. Zira wiped the blood from her lip and faced Kaltor again. He growled, You should have stayed down. She shook her head. Not a chance. Kaltor charged again, this time faster than before. Jake realized something. He's getting impatient, he whispered. Zira, use it. Zira narrowed her eyes. As Kaltor swung his massive fist again, she suddenly dropped low and rolled between his legs. Before Kaltor could turn, Zira leaped onto his back, grabbed his thick neck, and locked her arms around it. Jake's eyes widened. She's going for a chokehold. Keltor staggered. He tried to shake her off, but Zyra held on tight. The warrior struggled, his movements becoming slower and weaker. Then, he dropped to one knee. A moment later, he collapsed. The crowd fell silent. Jake held his breath. Did it work? Then the referee raised his flag. Winner, Zirha of Clan Varun. Jake jumped up. Yes. The crowd erupted into cheers. Zirha stood up, breathing heavily. She had won. Again, a new problem arises. As Zirha and Jake left the arena, a familiar voice called out. Impressive. They turned and froze. A tall female Veltree warrior, covered in royal blue armor, stepped forward. Her presence radiated authority. Jake frowned. Who's that? Zira's expression darkened. She is High Warrior Cyril Vex. Jake blinked. And that means? Cyril Vex smirked. It means you are no longer just a fighter, Zira. She crossed her arms. You are now a champion. And champions must face the grand trial. Jake froze. Oh no. Zira clenched her fists. She had wanted to prove herself. But now, she was in way too deep. To be continued. What just happened? Zira wins her second fight against a stronger warrior. Jake's human combat tricks continue to help her. Her victory makes her a champion. Now she must face the grand trial, something much bigger than she expected. Want me to continue with part 4? You said. Part 4 to 750 words kaleko or interesting humachaya or third-person style maleknihad or simple basic English ka. Don't use any violated word, so please avoid any violated content. ChatGPT said. Part 4. The grand trial begins. Jake sat on a stone bench outside the arena, his head in his hands. This was getting out of control. A few days ago, all he wanted was to help Zira through her mating season problem. He never expected that she would rise through the ranks of an alien warrior society, or that she would now be forced into the grand trial. He looked up at Zira, who was sharpening the blade on her gauntlet. She was calm, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. So, Jake sighed. What exactly is the grand trial? Zira didn't stop sharpening. It is the final test. Only the strongest warriors reach this level. Jake groaned. Yeah, great. And what happens if you win? Zira hesitated. I will gain the highest honor among my people. Jake raised an eyebrow. And what if you lose? She paused for a long moment. I cannot lose. Jake didn't like that answer. Before he could press further, a deep gong echoed through the city. The signal. It was time. Entering the trial grounds. The arena was even bigger than before, packed with thousands of Veltree warriors. The air buzzed with anticipation. Jake and Zira walked toward the massive stone gateway that led to the trial grounds. High Warrior Cyril Vex stood waiting for them, her piercing gaze locked on Zira. You have proven yourself, Cyril Vex said, but now you must survive the final test. Zira nodded. I am ready. Jake cleared his throat. But so, what exactly is this test? Cyril Vex smirked. The grand trial is not just one fight. It is a series of 3 challenges, each designed to push a warrior to their absolute limit. Jake's stomach sank. 3? As in, back to back. Cyril Vex nodded. If she fails any of them, she is out. Jake turned to Zira. You sure about this? Zira looked at him, her golden eyes steady. I have come too far to back down now. Jake sighed. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. A massive horn blast shook the arena. The crowd roared in excitement. The grand trial had begun. Zira stepped onto the stone battlefield, her claws flexing. Across from her, 5 armored warriors stood in formation. They were not just ordinary fighters. These were elite guardians, the toughest warriors in the Empire. Jake's heart pounded. 5-on-1. That's not a fight. That's a massacre. The referee raised his flag. The first challenge had begun. The moment the flag dropped, All 5 warriors attacked at once. Zira dodged the first strike, twisting her body to avoid a massive hammer swing. She rolled to the side, barely missing a blade aimed at her chest. Jake clenched his fists. She can't take them all at once. She needs to split them up. Zira, keep moving. Don't let them surround you. She heard him. Instead of fighting in the center, she dashed toward the edge of the battlefield, forcing the warriors to chase her. One warrior, too eager, rushed ahead. A mistake. Zira spun around and struck, her clawed fist slamming into his jaw. He staggered back, just enough for her to grab his arm and flip him over her shoulder. One down. The remaining 4 closed in. Zira ducked as a blade sliced the air where her head had been. She used her tail to sweep another warrior's legs, sending him crashing to the ground. 2 down. Jake punched the air. Yes, that's how you do it. But the remaining 3 warriors were smarter. They circled her, attacking from multiple directions. Zira was fast, but she couldn't dodge everything. A heavy fist slammed into her ribs, making her stumble. Another warrior grabbed her arm, locking it in place. Jake's heart jumped. Zira, don't let them hold you. Zira gritted her teeth. She wasn't done yet. She twisted her body, using the warrior's grip against him. Her sharp elbow jabbed into his throat, forcing him to let go. Then she turned, grabbed his wrist, and used his own momentum to throw him into another fighter. 4 down. The last warrior hesitated. Zira took the chance. She charged forward, leaped into the air, and delivered a powerful kick straight to his chest. He flew backward, landing with a heavy thud. 5 down. Silence fell over the arena. Then, the crowd erupted into cheers. Jake jumped up and cheered. She did it. Zira, breathing heavily, turned to the referee. He raised his flag. Trial 1. Complete. Jake grinned. 1 down. 2 to go. But as Zira walked back toward him, Cyrilvek smirked. You fought well, Zira, she said. But the next trial is where the real test begins. Jake swallowed. What do you mean by that? Cyrilvek turned away. You'll see. Jake looked at Zira. I have a really bad feeling about this. Zira clenched her fists. The battle was far from over, and something told her the worst was yet to come. Zira stood in the center of the arena, her breath coming in short bursts. The first trial had pushed her to the limit, but she had won. Jake, standing at the edge of the battlefield, fist-pumped the air. Yes, 1 down, 2 to go. But his excitement didn't last long. Cyrilvek, standing high above on the royal platform, raised her hand. The crowd fell silent. For the second trial, she announced, we will test the warrior's endurance and survival skills. Jake frowned. Endurance. That sounded different from the first trial. A deep rumble echoed through the arena. Zira's sharp eyes darted around. Something was changing. Then, with a loud grinding noise, the arena floor split apart, huge stone slabs sliding away to reveal a massive underground cavern beneath them. Jake's jaw dropped. Wait, what is that? Cyrilvek smirked. Welcome to the trial of endurance. Zira jumped back as the last piece of solid ground disappeared beneath her feet. She landed on a rough, rocky surface, the air suddenly much hotter. Jake ran to the edge and looked down. The entire battlefield had transformed. Instead of a flat arena, Zira now stood in a twisting maze of stone pillars, lava pools, and crumbling bridges. Cyrilvek's voice echoed across the battlefield. The rules are simple. You must survive for 10 minutes while facing the dangers of the battlefield. Jake blinked. That's it. No opponent. Cyrilvek chuckled. Oh, she has an opponent. A massive metal gate at the far end of the battlefield rumbled open. Jake's stomach dropped. Something was moving in the darkness. Something big. Then it stepped into the light. A 6-legged beast, covered in thick armored plates, stomped onto the battlefield. Its serpentine head twisted, yellow eyes glowing. Razor-sharp claws scraped against the stone, and when it opened its mouth, rows of jagged fangs gleamed in the fiery light. Jake's eyes widened. "Oh, that is not good." Cyril Vex's voice rang out. "The Exalvor beast, a creature that never tires, never stops, and never shows mercy." Jake's face turned pale. Zara wasn't just surviving the battlefield. She had to survive the monster too. The horn blasted. The trial had begun. Run or fight. Zara didn't waste time. The moment the horn sounded, she leaped to the side, dodging as the Exalvor beast lunged forward, its massive jaws snapping shut inches from her tail. Jake gripped the edge of his seat. She can't fight that thing head-on. Zara, just run. Stay ahead of it. She didn't need his advice. Zara had dashed across the rocky battlefield, jumping from one stone platform to another. The Exalvor charged after her, its claws crushing stone as it moved. But Zara was faster. She leaped onto a narrow bridge and sprinted across. The beast followed, its heavy steps making the structure shake dangerously. Jake held his breath. Then, the bridge cracked. With a loud crash, it collapsed, sending the Exalvor tumbling into a lava pit below. Jake cheered. "Yes, that's how you do it." But Zara didn't celebrate, because the beast wasn't dead. With a deafening roar, the Exalvor climbed out of the lava, its thick armor now glowing red-hot. Jake's heart stopped. "Oh, come on. That's not fair." The crowd roared with excitement. Zara clenched her fists. She had to change tactics. A dangerous plan. Zara scanned the battlefield. She needed a way to slow the creature down. Then she saw it. A tall, unstable pillar of stone, balancing on a narrow ledge. If she could bring it down at the right moment, she took a deep breath. This was risky. The Exalvor charged again, moving faster than before. Zara ran straight toward the stone pillar, keeping just ahead of the beast. Jake's eyes widened. What is she doing? Zara reached the base of the pillar and jumped to the side at the last second. The Exalvor slammed into the rock with full force. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, the entire pillar began to fall. Jake's breath caught. With a thunderous crash, the pillar collapsed on top of the beast, burying it under tons of rock. A massive cloud of dust filled the air. Jake waited. Did it work? Then, the horn blasted again. Cyril Vex's voice rang out. Trial 2. Complete. Jake nearly fell over in relief. Zara stumbled forward, breathing hard. She had done it. The crowd erupted into cheers. Jake grinned. One more to go. But as he turned to Cyril Vex, he noticed something. For the first time, she looked serious. The final trial, she announced, will determine if Zara is truly worthy. Jake's smile faded. Something about her tone sent a chill down his spine. Whatever the final trial was, it was going to be worse than anything they had faced so far. Zara stood in the center of the battlefield, her breath heavy. The second trial had pushed her to the limit, but she had survived. Jake clenched his fists as he watched from the edge of the arena. 2 down, 1 to go. But something felt off. Cyril Vex stepped forward on the royal platform, raising her arms. The crowd fell silent. The final trial is upon us, she declared. This test is not just about strength or endurance. Jake frowned. Then what is it about? Cyril Vex's golden eyes locked onto Zara. It is a test of loyalty. The arena floor shifted again, large stone slabs rising to form a circular battlefield. The lava pools and broken bridges from the last trial disappeared, replaced by a flat, open space. At first, Jake didn't understand. Where was the opponent? Then, a second gate rumbled open, and Jake's heart stopped. Because stepping onto the battlefield was another Veltree warrior. Not just any warrior. A female, covered in deep crimson battle armor. Taller than Zara. Stronger. and looking at her with cold, unreadable eyes. Zira stiffened. Her claws curled into fists. Jake looked between them. Something was wrong. "Who is that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cyril Vex smirked. "That is Zira's elder sister." Jake froze. His eyes snapped to Zira, whose expression had turned unreadable. "She is my blood," Zira said quietly. "My kin." Jake's stomach twisted. "Wait, are you saying?" Cyril Vex raised a hand. "The rules are simple. Only one of you may walk away victorious. Prove your loyalty to the Veltri Empire." Jake's breath caught. They wanted Zira to fight her own sister, a battle she didn't want. Zira and her sister circled each other. Neither moved. The arena was silent, as if the entire crowd was holding its breath. Jake's mind raced. This isn't fair. They fought to protect each other, not to kill each other. He took a step forward. "Zira, you don't have to do this." Zira's golden eyes flickered to him, just for a second. That second was all her sister needed. With a burst of speed, the armored warrior charged. Zira barely had time to react. Her sister's clawed fist slammed into her side, sending her skidding backward across the stone. The crowd roared. Jake flinched. That hit was brutal. Zira staggered to her feet, shaking her head. "Sister, I do not wish to fight you." Her sister's voice was cold as steel. "Then you have already lost." Without hesitation, she attacked again. Zira dodged left, barely missing a heavy strike aimed for her head. She blocked the next attack, but her sister was too strong. The impact sent shockwaves through her arms. Jake's chest tightened. Zira was holding back. She didn't want to hurt her sister. But her sister. She wasn't holding back at all. A test of loyalty. Zira panted, backing away. She knew her sister well. She had trained with her since childhood. Her sister had always been stronger. And now, that strength was being used against her. A quick kick to the ribs sent Zira tumbling. She coughed, gripping her side. The pain was real. But worse than the pain was the doubt creeping into her mind. Had her sister already chosen her loyalty? Zira forced herself up. She couldn't keep retreating. She had to decide. Was she going to fight or surrender? Her sister charged again. Zira didn't move. Jake's heart jumped. "Zira, move you." At the last second, she dropped to the ground, spinning her legs. Her tail swept her sister's legs out from under her. The armored warrior fell hard. For the first time, she looked surprised. Zira stood over her, breathing heavily. "I do not wish to fight you," she repeated, "but I will not fall." Her sister smirked. Then she lunged again. But this time, Zira was ready. She caught the incoming strike and twisted, using her sister's own momentum to flip her over her shoulder. Jake's eyes widened. That was fast. Her sister hit the ground with a heavy thud. She tried to get up, but Zira had already placed a clawed hand against her throat. Silence. For a long moment, no one moved. Jake swallowed hard. Had she won? The final decision. Cyril Vex stood. "You have bested your opponent." Zira didn't speak. Her sister was beneath her, breathing hard. Defeated, but still alive. Jake exhaled in relief. She did it. But then, Cyril Vex's expression turned sharp. "Now, finish her." Jake's blood turned cold. Zira froze. Her golden eyes flickered between her sister and Cyril Vex. The crowd waited. Zira's claws tensed. Jake could see the struggle in her face. Cyril Vex leaned forward. "Do it, Zira. Prove your loyalty." Jake couldn't stay silent anymore. "Zira." His voice echoed across the battlefield. "This isn't who you are." She looked up. Their eyes met. And in that moment, she made her choice. Zira stepped back. She lowered her hand. And then she dropped to one knee. "I refuse," she said, her voice clear. I will not harm my own blood. The arena fell silent. Cyril Vex's expression darkened. The trial was over. But something told Jake. The real fight was just beginning. The arena was silent. Zira stood tall, her golden eyes locked onto Cyril Vex. Her sister lay on the ground, breathing hard but alive. Jake held his breath. Zyra had made her choice. She had refused to finish the fight. But Cyril Vex, she was not pleased. The Empress of the Veltri Empire rose from her throne. You refuse. Her voice was calm, but there was cold fury beneath it. Zirhed didn't waver. Yes. A ripple of shock spread through the crowd. Veltri warriors were trained to follow orders without question. To refuse in the final trial, it was unheard of. Jake stepped forward. She won the fight. She passed the trial. Cyril Vex turned her gaze to him. Did she? Her golden eyes narrowed. Or did she betray our ways? The tension grew thick. Zira clenched her fists. I fought with honor. I proved my strength, but I will not harm my own blood. Her sister, still on the ground, slowly sat up. She looked at Zira for a long moment, then nodded. Jake saw it, a silent understanding. But Cyril Vex. She took a step forward. You disappoint me, Zira, she said. You were strong. You had potential. The Empress's eyes burned with anger. But now, she raised her hand. You are a traitor. The escape begins. Jake's heart dropped. Wait. What? Cyril Vex's voice boomed across the arena. Guards. Take them both. At once, Veltri warriors surged forward. Zira didn't hesitate. She grabbed her sister's arm and pulled her to her feet. We need to go. Now. Jake ran down the steps toward the battlefield. We need an exit. Zira's sister, still breathing hard, looked at her. You just made an enemy of the Empress. Zira smirked. I know. Jake reached them just as the first Veltri soldiers charged in. Zira whirled and blocked a strike from a spear-wielding warrior. She kicked him back before spinning to dodge another attack. Her sister joined in, knocking down 2 more warriors. Jake ducked as a plasma staff swung over his head. Okay, maybe we should run now. Zira nodded. Agreed. She grabbed Jake by the arm and sprinted toward the exit gate. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some warriors rushed to attack, while others simply watched in shock. Cyril Vex shouted orders, but the battlefield had descended into madness. Zira's sister pointed ahead. There's a transport bay beyond the arena. If we reach it, we can steal a ship. Jake grinned. Now that's a plan I like. The final stand. They burst through the exit gate, entering a wide metallic hallway. But before they could reach the end, Veltri guards blocked their path. Zira exhaled sharply. No choice. We fight. Jake pulled out the small blaster he had hidden in his belt. You had a weapon this whole time? Zyra's sister asked. Jake shrugged. Hey, I like being prepared. The guards rushed forward. Zira met them head-on, dodging a spear strike and countering with a powerful kick. Jake fired his blaster, stunning one of the warriors. Zira's sister grabbed a fallen staff, spinning it with expert precision before taking down 2 more opponents. They fought with everything they had. And finally, the last guard fell unconscious. Jake panted. Please tell me that was the last of them. Zira looked ahead. Almost there. They ran toward the massive metal doors at the end of the hall. Zyra's sister pressed the controls. The doors slid open, and beyond them, a hangar full of ships. Jake whooped. Oh, we are so out of here. They sprinted toward a sleek black starship, its engines still warm. Zira's sister hacked the controls while Jake and Zira held off the last wave of guards. Finally, the ship powered up. Zira jumped into the pilot's seat. Hold on. Jake barely buckled in before the ship blasted out of the hangar, soaring into the sky. As they broke through the planet's atmosphere, Jake exhaled in relief. We did it. Zira's sister turned to her. You made a dangerous choice today. Zira smiled. And I'd make it again. Jake grinned. So, where to now? Zira looked ahead, determination in her eyes. Anywhere but here. The ship jumped to hyperspace. The end.